They laughed at her. They called her just a waitress and treated her like she didn't belong. But what they didn't know was that Maya had a plan, one that would shock everyone who doubted her. For years, she endured the whispers, the dismissive looks, and the arrogance of wealthy customers who assumed she'd never rise above her apron. But one day, when the restaurant owner announced his retirement, Maya did something no one expected. She became the new owner. And when the same people who mocked her walked in and saw her name on the door, they realized they had underestimated the wrong woman. Maya Johnson never planned on working at the restaurant forever. At 26 years old, she knew she was meant for something bigger, something beyond the grease-stained aprons, the long double shifts, and the exhausting reality of waiting on people who barely glanced at her face when they ordered. But life had its own way of cornering her, shaping her path in ways she never imagined. Born and raised in a modest neighborhood, Maya had learned resilience from a young age. Her mother, Denise, worked as a nurse who often pulled 12-hour shifts to keep food on the table. Her father, who had once dreamed of becoming a jazz musician, took whatever odd jobs he could find after being laid off from a factory position. Together, they instilled in Maya the importance of perseverance and pride in hard work. She wasn't rich, but she was resourceful, sharp, and quietly ambitious. The restaurant, Redwood Grill, was not glamorous. It wasn't the kind of place that drew celebrities or influencers. Instead, it was the heartbeat of the town, a cozy, mid-sized place with red leather booths, framed black and white photos of the city on the walls, and the smell of sizzling burgers that greeted every guest at the door. For years, Maya balanced trays of drinks, memorized regulars' orders, and wore the polite smile expected of service workers. But while her co-workers saw it as just a job, Maya saw something different. She studied everything: the profit margins, the turnover of staff, the way customers responded to menu changes, even the subtle strategies the manager used to upsell sides and desserts. She told no one, but she was treating Redwood Grill as her classroom. Still, that didn't stop the cruelty she faced. Every shift came with whispers she couldn't ignore. Some customers treated her as invisible. Others were outright disrespectful. One Saturday night, a group of businessmen in suits laughed when she accidentally dropped a fork near their table. "Careful," one of them sneered. "Don't quit your day job." Another chimed in. "Not like she's going anywhere." "Waitressing is her ceiling," Maya smiled through it. She always did. But inside, every word was fuel. Every insult became a spark pushing her toward the fire of her hidden ambition. The unseen battles. The hardest part wasn't the rude customers. It was her co-workers. Jessica, another waitress, had been at Redwood Grill for years and seemed to have made it her personal mission to remind Maya of her place. She'd roll her eyes when Maya suggested more efficient ways to handle orders. "You think you're the manager or something?" she'd mutter. When tips were pooled, Jessica always insisted she worked harder, even if Maya had more tables. The kitchen staff wasn't much better. Some cooks dismissed her when she asked about food prep techniques. They saw her curiosity as meddling. "Why are you asking, Maya?" one of them joked. "You plan on stealing the recipes and opening your own place?" The way they laughed afterward stung, but if only they knew how close to the truth they were. And then there were the customers who couldn't see past her skin color. A woman once demanded a different server, muttering under her breath about wanting someone else. The manager, an older man named Frank, had reluctantly reassigned the table, avoiding confrontation. That night, Maya went home furious. Not just at the woman, but at how quickly Frank had folded instead of standing up for her. But she didn't let bitterness consume her. Instead, she kept her focus. She was saving every penny she could, working extra shifts, and taking online business classes late into the night, when her feet ached and her body begged for rest. She knew knowledge was power, and power was what she needed. A hidden dream Maya's dream wasn't just about owning a restaurant. It was about rewriting the story everyone else had written for her. Society, customers, even her own co-workers assumed she'd always be the help. But Maya envisioned herself as the one signing paychecks, making executive decisions, and setting the tone for an establishment where people like her weren't dismissed but respected. She often sketched ideas in her notebook during breaks. new menu items inspired by her mother's southern cooking, marketing strategies to draw in younger crowds, and even decor upgrades that could modernize the place without losing its charm. While others scrolled through social media during downtime, Maya was designing her future. Her best friend, Tasha, was the only one she confided in. They'd meet after late shifts at a 24-hour diner, and Maya would spread her notebook across the sticky table, showing her scribbled plans. "Girl, one day this is going to be you," Tasha said, pointing to the sketches of the restaurant's sign with Maya's name on it. But Maya always laughed it off, afraid to believe too much. "One day," she'd whisper. The turning point. That one day came sooner than anyone expected. One Friday evening, the restaurant buzzed with energy. Families filled booths, couples toasted to anniversaries, and regulars lingered at the bar. Maya noticed Frank, the longtime owner, sitting in his usual spot near the register. His face was tired, more so than usual. At the end of the night, he gathered the staff for an announcement. "I've decided it's time for me to retire," he said, his voice heavy with finality. "Redwood Grill has been my life for 30 years, but I'm ready to step back." A hush fell over the room. Some of the staff gasped, others exchanged nervous glances. Frank continued, "I'll be selling the place. I don't know who yet, but I'll make sure it's someone who respects this restaurant's legacy." Maya's heart pounded. This was the moment. Everything she'd been preparing for, every insult, every late-night class, every carefully saved dollar, suddenly felt like it had been leading here. But doubt crept in just as quickly. Could she really pull this off? She was just a waitress, after all. Who would take her seriously as a buyer? Still, when she went home that night, she didn't sleep. Instead, she opened her laptop, reviewed her savings, polished her business plan, and whispered a promise to herself. "This is my chance. I won't let it slip away." Foreshadowing the conflict, what Maya didn't know was that others had their eyes on Redwood Grill too. People with deeper pockets, louder voices, and little interest in preserving the soul of the restaurant. The battle ahead wouldn't just be about money. It would be about proving her worth in a world that constantly underestimated her. And when those same people who mocked her returned, expecting just the waitress to serve them again, they'd be forced to confront a truth they could no longer laugh away. Maya could hardly think about anything else after Frank's announcement. Retirement, selling the restaurant. Her chest felt heavy with both excitement and fear. That night, after finishing her shift, she sat at the small wooden desk in her apartment, surrounded by stacks of notebooks, receipts, and folders she'd collected over the years. She spread out her savings statements, her rough drafts of a business plan, and the handwritten notes she had taken during late-night online classes. For years, she had been quietly preparing, imagining the day she might own a restaurant. But imagination and reality were two very different things. Owning Redwood Grill meant convincing Frank that she wasn't just a dreamer. It meant proving to him, and to herself, that she could lead, manage, and grow what he had built over decades. Still, there was no time to waste. If she hesitated, the opportunity would slip into someone else's hands. The first obstacle, the next day, Maya asked Frank if she could speak with him after the lunch rush. He was sitting in his corner booth, nursing a black coffee like always, when she nervously slid into the seat across from him. "Frank," she began carefully, "I heard your announcement." "I've been thinking. I want to make you an offer for the restaurant." Frank looked at her as though he hadn't heard right. His thick gray brows rose. "You?" Maya nodded, her throat dry but her voice steady. "I've been studying business, saving money, planning for years. I know this place inside out. I could carry it forward." Frank sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. "Maya, you're a good worker. One of the best I've had. But owning a restaurant? That's different. It's expensive, it's stressful. It's not for everyone." She felt the sting of his words, but she didn't back down. "Maybe not for everyone. But for me, I think it is. I've been preparing. I believe in this place, and I think I can make it thrive." Frank studied her in silence. "Bring me a formal plan. Numbers, strategies. If you're serious, I'll take a look." Maya's pulse quickened. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. Word spread quickly among the staff that the restaurant was up for sale. Some whispered nervously about losing their jobs. Others, like Jessica, seemed almost gleeful at the prospect of change. One evening in the break room, Jessica smirked at Maya. "You actually think you could buy this place?" "Please, do you even know how much money it takes?" "I know enough," Maya replied calmly, not taking the bait. Jessica leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Frank's not going to hand over Redwood Grill to a waitress who scrubs ketchup stains off booths." "Get real," but Maya didn't respond. She didn't need to. Jessica's words were meant to break her spirit, but instead they fueled her determination. What Maya didn't realize yet was that Jessica wasn't just mocking her. Jessica had her own plans. She had an uncle in real estate, someone with deep pockets who was already eyeing Redwood Grill as a potential investment. If Jessica could sway Frank into selling to her uncle, she stood to gain, maybe even secure herself a cushy management role. Maya wasn't just fighting for her dream now. She was stepping into a battle she hadn't even known was coming. Late nights, heavy burdens, Maya threw herself into preparation. After every shift, she stayed up into the early morning hours, refining her business plan. She researched loans, drafted financial projections, and compared the restaurant's current performance to what she believed it could achieve with fresh ideas. Her apartment became a war zone of papers and sticky notes. Some nights exhaustion nearly broke her. She'd wake up with her head resting on her laptop keyboard, eyes stinging from lack of sleep. But every time doubt crept in, she thought about the customers who sneered at her, the co-workers who dismissed her, and the life she dreamed of building. Tasha, her best friend, became her sounding board. "Girl, you're killing yourself," Tasha said one evening, handing Maya a cup of tea. "But I've never seen you so alive at the same time." "Don't stop. I can't stop," Maya whispered. "Not now. Not when I'm this close." The meeting with Frank 2 weeks later, Maya handed Frank a neatly bound folder. Her business plan. Inside were her financial strategies, projected growth charts, ideas for modernizing the menu, and even marketing campaigns designed to bring in younger crowds without losing loyal regulars. Frank sat with her in his office, reading through the pages. He didn't say much, just hummed occasionally and furrowed his brow. After what felt like an eternity, he closed the folder and looked at her. "You've done your homework," he admitted. "I'll give you that." "This is impressive, Maya," hope flickered in her chest. "But," he continued slowly, "there are other offers. Investors with bigger wallets. People who could buy this place tomorrow with no loans, no risks." Maya's heart sank. She knew this was coming. She didn't have millions in cash lying around. What she had was vision, passion, and determination. But was that enough? "Think about what this restaurant means," Maya said softly. "To you, to the staff, to the community. Do you really want it in the hands of someone who just sees dollar signs?" Frank didn't reply right away, but she could see the conflict in his eyes. The rival's move, a week later, Maya found out Jessica's uncle had officially submitted a bid. It was higher than anything Maya could dream of offering. Rumors swirled among the staff that the sale was practically guaranteed. Jessica walked around smugly, acting as though she already owned the place. She even started giving other waitresses orders, pretending to be in charge. "Maya," she said one afternoon with a smirk, "don't get too comfortable. Things are about to change around here." But Maya wasn't done fighting. She doubled down on her efforts. She contacted community leaders, small business mentors, and even a few loyal customers who had always believed in her. Slowly, she began to build a coalition of support. If she couldn't outbid Jessica's uncle with raw cash, maybe she could win through something stronger: trust, loyalty, and vision. The unexpected ally one evening. As she was cleaning up after closing, an older customer approached her. Mr. Thompson, a retired businessman who came in every Friday for steak and mashed potatoes, had overheard some of the staff talking. "Maya," he said, adjusting his glasses, "I hear you're trying to buy this place." "Yes." "Sir," she admitted nervously, "I've watched you work for years. You treat every customer with respect, even the ones who don't deserve it. You've got grit, and grit is worth more than money sometimes. If you're serious, I might be able to connect you with people who believe in young entrepreneurs." Her heart nearly burst. For the first time, she felt like she wasn't fighting alone. The pressure builds as the weeks passed. The tension at Redwood Grill grew unbearable. Frank hadn't announced his decision yet, but it felt like the walls were closing in on Maya. Jessica's smugness grew louder, while the weight of expectation pressed harder on Maya's shoulders. She faced rejection after rejection from banks, who looked at her savings and shook their heads. But she didn't give up. Every closed door pushed her to knock on another. At the same time, she began quietly testing some of her ideas on the job. She suggested small changes to specials, reorganized sections for better efficiency, and even pitched new dessert options. Customers noticed. They complimented the improvements, and Frank noticed too, bit by bit. Maya was proving what she already knew. She wasn't just a waitress. She was a leader in disguise, foreshadowing the showdown, but Jessica wasn't blind. She saw Maya gaining momentum, and it enraged her. One night, she cornered Maya in the parking lot. "You really think you're going to beat us?" Jessica hissed. "My uncle has more money than you'll ever see in your life. You should just quit while you're ahead." Maya met her glare with calm defiance. "We'll see." Jessica's smirk faltered, but only for a second. She turned and walked away, but the venom in her words lingered. The stage was set. The waitress everyone mocked was now standing against investors, rivals, and a system stacked against her. The fight for Redwood Grill wasn't just about a restaurant anymore. It was about dignity, legacy, and proving that underestimated people could rise higher than anyone expected. And soon, the final confrontation would decide it all. The night of the final decision was tense. Frank had called a meeting at Redwood Grill after closing hours. The neon sign outside still buzzed faintly, but inside the chairs were stacked against the walls, and the air carried the weight of anticipation. Staff members gathered in small clusters, whispering nervously. Everyone knew this wasn't just about a business. It was about the soul of the restaurant. Maya sat in one corner, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Across the room, Jessica strutted in confidently with her uncle beside her, a tall man in a sleek suit who reeked of money and entitlement. He scanned the room like he already owned it. Frank cleared his throat and stood at the front. "Thank you all for coming. I wanted everyone here tonight because Redwood Grill has been more than just a workplace. It's been a family. But as you all know, I'm retiring, and it's time to decide who will take the reins." The room went silent. Maya's heart pounded. The bids Frank motioned to Jessica's uncle first. The man rose smoothly, flashing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "My name is Richard Caldwell," he announced. "I've been in real estate for 30 years, and I know how to run businesses. I've offered Frank a generous sum, well above market value. I intend to renovate this place, modernize it, and bring in a more upscale clientele. Under my ownership, Redwood Grill will rise to a whole new level." Jessica beamed proudly beside him, already acting like queen of the castle. A few staff members exchanged worried glances. Everyone knew modernize was code for layoffs and drastic changes. Then Frank turned toward Maya. "Maya, your turn." She rose slowly, her knees trembling, but her voice steady. "I don't have millions like Mr. Caldwell. What I do have is years of dedication to this restaurant. I know its heartbeat. I know its people. I've seen families celebrate birthdays here. Couples have first dates, and regulars find comfort after long days. This place isn't just a business, it's a community." She paused, scanning the room, meeting the eyes of the cooks, servers, and even Frank himself. "My plan isn't to erase Redwood Grill's history, but to honor it, while making smart changes to help it grow. I've built a proposal with strategies for increasing revenue, modernizing the menu, and bringing in new customers, without pushing out the people who already call this place home." She placed a folder on the table. "I may not be the wealthiest bidder, but I'm the one who cares most about Redwood Grill's future." The room erupted in murmurs. The smear campaign. Jessica rolled her eyes dramatically. "That was cute, Maya, but let's be real. You're a waitress. You don't have the money, the experience, or the connections to pull this off. You'll run the place into the ground within a year." Her uncle smirked, adding, "Frank, sentiment is nice, but business is about results. Are you really willing to risk everything you've built on a gamble?" The words stung, but Maya didn't flinch. She knew this was coming. She had prepared for it. "Results don't just come from money," Maya replied firmly. "They come from leadership, dedication, and vision. I've already started testing my ideas here. And you've all seen the results. Higher sales on nights we tried new specials. Faster table turnover after reorganizing sections. Happier customers when we offered new desserts. That's not a gamble. That's proof. A few staff members nodded, whispering their agreement. Jessica's smile faltered slightly. Just when Maya thought she had regained her footing, Richard Caldwell pulled out a thick folder and slapped it on the table. I anticipated this idealistic speech, he said smoothly. That's why I'm prepared. I've already secured financing, permits, and architectural designs for renovations. I'm offering Frank not just money, but certainty. Can you do the same, Maya? He leaned back smugly, certain the fight was over. Maya's pulse quickened. She didn't have flashy designs or multi-million-dollar backing. But then, she remembered something. Mr. Thompson, the retired businessman who had promised support. Taking a deep breath, Maya reached into her bag and pulled out her own folder. Actually, I can. The staff leaned forward as she opened it. Inside were letters of support from community leaders, small business investors, and even a local credit union willing to back her loan. There were also signed statements from long-term customers pledging loyalty if she became owner. This isn't just my dream, Maya said firmly. It's the community's dream. People believe in me. They believe in this place. And together, we can make it succeed. For the first time, Richard Caldwell looked unsettled. Frank's decision. The room held its breath as Frank rubbed his chin, looking between the two proposals. Silence stretched for what felt like hours. Finally, he spoke. Richard, your offer is impressive. But money isn't the only measure of value. I've seen too many businesses sold to investors who didn't care about the people, and they ruined what made them special. He turned toward Maya. His eyes softened. Maya, I've watched you grow from a shy young waitress into someone who commands respect without even realizing it. You've proven your commitment to Redwood Grill time and time again, and I know you're the one who can carry it forward. Maya's breath caught. Frank extended his hand toward her. The restaurant is yours. The staff erupted in cheers. Some clapped, some hugged each other, and a few even cried tears of joy. Jessica, meanwhile, stood frozen, her face pale with shock. Public humiliation. You can't be serious. Jessica shouted, her voice shrill. You're choosing her over us? She's nothing! She's just a— Enough, Frank interrupted sharply. She's not just anything. She's the future owner of Redwood Grill. And if you can't respect that, maybe this isn't the place for you anymore. Jessica's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Staff members who had endured her arrogance for years now laughed openly at her downfall. Her uncle tugged at her arm, muttering angrily, "Come on, Jessica. We're leaving." As they stormed out, the room buzzed with energy. The emotional peak Maya stood there in shock, tears welling in her eyes. She had fought against doubt, ridicule, rejection, and powerful rivals, and she had won. Frank placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. This restaurant has always been about heart, and you've got more heart than anyone I've ever met. Don't forget that. Maya swallowed hard, her vision blurry with emotion. Thank you, Frank. I won't let you down. As her co-workers surrounded her with hugs and congratulations, Maya felt something she had never felt before. Ownership. Not just of Redwood Grill, but of her destiny. The girl who had once been mocked for dreaming too big was now standing as the rightful heir to a legacy. And in that moment she knew. This was only the beginning. The morning after Frank's announcement felt surreal. Maya woke up earlier than usual, staring at the sunlight streaking through her curtains, replaying the words in her head. The restaurant is yours. She wasn't dreaming. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was now the proud owner of Redwood Grill. But with that pride came responsibility. And responsibility was heavy. The transition. The first weeks were overwhelming. Maya had to learn about taxes, payroll, permits, supplier negotiations, things she had never dealt with before. Some nights she stayed in the restaurant long after closing, papers spread across tables, exhaustion pulling at her eyes. But she wasn't alone. Her co-workers, now her employees, stood by her side. Jamal, the head chef, helped her redesign the menu. Rosa, a longtime server, organized schedules. Even the dishwasher, Luis, offered to paint the walls when Maya couldn't afford a contractor yet. For the first time, the staff felt truly united. Redwood Grill wasn't just Frank's anymore. It belonged to all of them, through Maya. The community rally's word spread quickly through town. The story of the waitress who became the owner reached beyond Redwood Grill's walls. Local newspapers covered it. Customers old and new flooded the restaurant, eager to support Maya. Families who had been coming for years stopped her to say, "We're so proud of you." Strangers shook her hand. The local church hosted a fundraiser dinner in her honor. Even the small credit union that helped finance her deal made her a featured success story. It wasn't just a business anymore. It was a movement. Jessica's shadow. But success brought enemies too. Jessica, bitter from her humiliation, spread rumors around town. She told anyone who'd listen that Maya was inexperienced, that the restaurant would collapse within months. She even convinced a rival restaurant owner to undercut Redwood Grill's prices, hoping to steal business. For a while, it worked. Maya saw a dip in sales. Some customers hesitated. Doubt crept in again, but instead of panicking, Maya doubled down. She leaned into the very thing that made Redwood Grill different: community. She organized charity nights, where a portion of sales went to local schools. She launched a customer recipe week, inviting families to share their home dishes on the menu. She created loyalty discounts for regulars. Her rival couldn't compete with Hart, and slowly, business climbed higher than ever. The personal growth through it all. Maya changed. The woman who once trembled when speaking in public now commanded meetings with confidence. The waitress who once thought she wasn't good enough now stood proudly as a leader. The girl who once endured whispered ridicule from people like Jessica now inspired admiration. One evening, after locking up, Maya caught her reflection in the restaurant's glass door. She hardly recognized the woman staring back at her, stronger, sharper, and surer than ever before. For the first time in her life, she whispered to herself, "I belong here." Frank's farewell. Few months later, Frank returned for a visit. The place looked brighter, livelier, busier. The air buzzed with energy. He pulled Maya aside, his eyes misty. "You've done it, Maya. You've made it even better than I imagined." She hugged him tightly, gratitude overwhelming her. "I couldn't have done it without you, Frank. You believed in me when no one else did." He smiled softly. "Don't thank me. You did this. You always had it in you. I just made sure the world finally saw it." The last blow to Jessica, the ultimate poetic justice, came months later at the town's annual Business Awards dinner. Redwood Grill, once overlooked, was named Business of the Year. Maya walked up to the stage in a simple but elegant dress, applause thundering around her. She gave a heartfelt speech about resilience, community, and believing in yourself even when others doubt you. Among the crowd sat Jessica, forced to watch as the very woman she had mocked, belittled and dismissed, was celebrated as a local hero. Her face burned with silent rage, but no one paid her attention anymore. The spotlight was firmly and permanently on Maya. Long-term impact over time, Redwood Grill became more than just a restaurant. It became a landmark of resilience. College students studied Maya's story as an example of perseverance. Local young women, especially black women who had often felt overlooked, saw Maya as living proof that dreams weren't out of reach. Maya also never forgot her roots. She created a scholarship fund for underprivileged youth who wanted to pursue business or culinary arts. She personally mentored young servers, teaching them that their worth wasn't defined by the uniform they wore, but by the dreams they carried. The girl once underestimated for her skin color. Gender and job title had become a symbol of possibility. Full circle one night. Years later, Maya walked into the dining room after closing. The staff had gone home, the lights dimmed, and the smell of roasted garlic still lingered in the air. She sat at her favorite booth, the one near the window, and remembered her very first shift all those years ago. Back then, she had been nervous, uncertain, and painfully aware of the whispers around her. Now she was the one in charge. She smiled, tears forming in her eyes. "We made it," she whispered into the silence. Redwood Grill wasn't just a restaurant anymore. It was a legacy, and it was hers.